The trip began with loading up the bikes onto a trailer, a simple way to save the tires and our energy for the real riding ahead. Halfway to Pirot, we linked up with the rest of the crew and continued the journey together. Our destination, the local motorcycle club Rolling Wheels, who kindly offered us a place to spend the night. It was already late when we arrived, but that didn't stop Radić from revving up a 4-cylinder like a true favela racing from Brazil. We kicked off the day with breakfast and the legendary Pirot ice cream scoop. Used to be 10 dinners, now it's 50. Inflation hits hard, even on adventures. We said goodbye to Rolling Wheels and hit the trail. Huge thanks to Rolling Wheels Moto Club for the incredible hospitality. Our goal for the first day of adventure was to leave Pirot and climb toward Midžor, the highest peak in Serbia, by following some remote ski slopes and mountain trails across Stara Planina. It was blazing hot, but Radić found the perfect way to cool off. Not planned, but definitely effective.
Treba pomoć. Pa se ovdje putično, možeš i tamo. Opa!
The ride towards Midžor was intense. A few steep climbs, but nothing we couldn't handle. Once we reached the top, the views made every drop of sweat worth it. But then came the real challenge. A narrow single trail with a steep drop on one side. this wasn't about physical strength, it was all mental. My focus had to be 100% on the path ahead. Only later, when I looked at the drone footage, I realized how stunning the landscape really was. Eventually, the trail ended in a completely impassable section, at least for us. That meant one thing: we had to ride back the same sketchy trail. And with daylight fading and the storm coming in, we had to make a decision.
Desi.
Ma tamo kombi je. Jel mi možemo proći nekuda? Nije mnogo dobro.
Ali ovamo nema šanse, ovo je.
In the distance we spotted a small cabin with a covered porch. The perfect place to take shelter in case the storm hit. Then, surprise, two guys showed up. Turns out they were local hunters. And instead of kicking us out, they invited us to dinner. They shared their food, their drinks, and even offered us space inside the cabin to sleep, because the rain wasn't letting up. From strangers to friends, just like that. Nothing like a flat tire first thing in the morning to warm up your muscles. As soon as the tire was back on, we discovered someone had left their bike with an ignition on and drained the battery. We tried with makeshift cables, but no luck, so we push-started it. We started the day right where we left off, with a tough technical section we had skipped the night before. The plan was to return to Midžor and from there head toward Topli Dol and on to Ponor. one of the natural wonders of Stara Planina. At one point, Radić and I switched bikes for a bit. I wanted to try the standing position on the Tenere. Once the terrain got technical, I was reminded just how exhausting a heavy bike can be when things get tough. We took a coffee break at Tri Čuke and made a few tweaks on Gliga's bike.
Ne može položaj još da se promeni, treba brek.
Since Gliga is the official TET linesman for Serbia, we decided to check out a difficult section riders had complained about. They were right. A brutal uphill with chunky rocks and no forgiveness. Soon after, we reached the Kraška Uvala Ponor. The entire terrain seems to collapse inward, like the land is folding into itself, with water from the mountain slopes disappearing into a deep cave. If you get close enough, you can hear it gurgling as it vanishes underground. We continued down toward the village of Dojkinci, tackling a tough descent. From there, we hit the asphalt and rode to Zavoj Lake, where the rest of the crew was already waiting to set up camp. And to wrap up a perfect day, barbecue by water. Doesn't get much better than that. We kept the latest day short, so we'd have enough time to load the bikes and start the drive back home before dark. Right out of the gate, we hit a tricky section. Of course that later on we find out there was a way around it.
Još oko bazenčića lepih je bilo. Jel tu ima neko kupalište?
Nemam pojma.
Ja bi se negdje vrate banja.
Možemo.
Na pola sata.
The heat was brutal again, but we'd been riding alongside a small river all morning, and eventually found the perfect spot to cool off. sun started to set, it was time to make our way back to Pirot. 3 intense days behind us, filled with climbs, heat and unforgettable moments. Until the next adventure, goodbye!